Thank you for watching the World Community Magazine's Hour of Power Live on Facebook with your host Edward McQueen and April Garner Davis.
Wow. Good evening. Welcome to the program this evening. A few days before that magnificent holiday that everyone can't wait to celebrate and memorize. I'm your host Ed McQueen today on WCM Live, and my co-host April is going to be working behind the scenes, so to speak. Those are her words. So, welcome. We want to welcome you anyway. And if you've seen any promotions, we'd like to do a follow-up to that. You'd like to kind of just narrate on a little bit first on the subject matter, which is a very, very critical issue, as you saw in our title, the fentanyl crisis, or we call it a crisis in Horry County. Okay, and we couldn't find any other. We don't think that there's anybody more capable of giving us some good knowledge on that than our guest today, and that's none other than the Honorable Jimmy Richardson. He's the 15th Judicial Circuit Solicitor, which encompasses Horry County, Georgetown, and I believe Williamsburg County. So without any further ado, we're going to start talking about some issues today on this fentanyl, which is seen to be a worsening situation in Horry County. So welcome to the program, the Honorable Jimmy Richardson.
Hey, Ed. Thank you for having me.
Good. Always a pleasure to have you. You've been on before, so you know the ropes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hope all is well with you and the family and everybody.
It is. We wound down today, our last day before Christmas. Of course, the courthouse is closed tomorrow, and we'll open back up Monday, and then I think they close New Year's Eve and New Year's. So it's a few days off here in between, and a lot of people took off this week. Just made it a long week.
Yeah, right. Well, having said that, it's very nice for you to willing to come and talk about this issue. It is a critical issue, and we know how you take that seriously. You on the last time you were on the program, you said that was a rising trend in Horry County, and that it was one of the biggest challenges of Horry County law enforcement.
Yeah, so, Ed, you'll see on our Facebook page, we genuinely post all of the trials that we have, and we'll post the wins, the losses, and everything else, just for transparency purposes. But this garners a lot of argument, where somebody gets 15 to 20, 25 years for conviction of distributing or trafficking in fentanyl. And we had, I think you could look at it too on our Facebook page. It had well over 800,000 people that were viewing it, which is, our whole county in Horry is 350,000, and about 50,000, 60,000 in Georgetown. So about double that. And there's arguments all over the place. That's too much time. That's not enough time. I've never seen anybody say, Jimmy, you got that one just right. 12 years is perfect, or 22 years is perfect. But about half of them believe it's too much time, and half of them believe it's too little. But it's a crisis mode, and when you involve prosecutors, that's about the only tool that we have, is to punish those that are trafficking, and to try to, we've got drug court, of course, that we try to, if the person's an addict, we try to get them on the right path. And there's a lot of great rehab places out there. But what makes drug court successful is that it's a post-plea model. In other words, you've already pled guilty. The judge has given you a sentence of 10 or 12 or 15 years and suspended that sentence upon successful completion of drug court.
That's a good break. That's a good break.
It's great. And over half of the people that go in graduate. We've now graduated over 1,800. No, maybe it's 1,600. We've graduated over 1,600 clients, and between Horry and Georgetown counties, and the recidivism rate on those that have graduated, it'll vary between 14% and about 16%, but it is a very low figure, much lower than prison, much lower than probation or any of those that can detail, because it's a long and very difficult program, drug court is. And we try to take all of those addicts. Those addicts, Ed, have on average over 12 prior arrests apiece. So they are not new to the game.
Right.
People that come in, they've got a ton of prior charges, and of course they're coming from drug addiction. Here, mainly in Horry. Now, me and you are old enough to remember where if you got a drug bust in Horry or Georgetown, it was going to be cocaine or crack cocaine. But now it's generally heroin or and usually heroin mixed with fentanyl. So that has pretty much taken over our area.
So let me just if I may remind you of back in May, I'm understanding there was this huge drug bust of fentanyl, right?
Yes,
like 25 pounds.
Yes, sir.
With a street value of roughly $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
What has transpired since then to excuse me, to indicate that there's been some progress, in terms of confiscating more or finding more or whatever?
The best indicator for us that we have sort of plateaued, and May we were still on the rise, but we've kind of plateaued this year. In other words, it's not dropping, but it's not continuously spiking like we were seeing before. It's plateaued. And what we base that on is the number of deaths. Fentanyl is about 40 times more potent than heroin. And for all of our listeners, if you will just go on the internet and do a quick Google, just Google heroin versus fentanyl, you'll see two tubes and hit on images. You'll see two test tubes, and one of them is about 3/4 of an inch in the bottom of the test tube, and that's heroin. And the one beside it, the fentanyl, is just a sprinkling or a dusting at the bottom. In fact, you could take the fentanyl tube and dump it into the heroin tube, and it would not even change the molecular weight, but it would double the potency. So that huge amount of heroin is equivalent to just the dusting of fentanyl. And again, fentanyl's, depending on the batch you get, fentanyl's about 40 times more potent than heroin.
Oh man, I don't think too many people know that.
No,
I just don't think so.
every time you see a lot of people, and we haven't really had that here in Horry, but I remember in Cincinnati, Ohio, a couple of years ago at the height of this thing, 19 people died over one weekend. And all that is a hot batch of heroin that was mixed with fentanyl. And we have found mixtures in marijuana. We found mixtures in cocaine. I don't know why the dealer would do it, but it makes it much more potent. And it does not, and it's about the same price as heroin. So it's cheap, comparatively speaking, but when you can mix it, so what happens is a lot of people in little homemade labs will mix the two test tubes and double the strength. You know, of course, if you buy heroin for $40 a bundle, and then you try to sell that same bundle for the street market value of $40, you're not going to make any money. But what they do is they mix fentanyl in, and then they cut it and automatically increase the dosage, but then they cut it with other powders, and that way you can sell it and make 40 your money back plus 40 more on
It's
each.
like crack, I guess. Crack
Same thing.
Yeah, same thing.
Yeah, it's crack is the whole reason for crack cocaine was cocaine was being mixed so many times that it was in a weakened state by the time the buyer got it. And crack is a way of taking that cocaine and burning out all of the impurities and just going to a stronger version of the cocaine, burning off all of the baby laxative and all of that stuff that has been mixed in. And they do the same thing with heroin. The problem is when you mix those two together, and I'm telling you, it's granular. It's like a dusting of salt. If you were to get two of those grains as opposed to one, you're dead. Unless somebody gets to you in time, that's enough to shut down your system. And that's where, when they're saying these hot doses coming through, you know, you couldn't really mix them in a lab and be safe. But that's what's happening to a lot of people.
Wow. Yeah, that was a huge bust though. Then the 25 pounds back in May.
No,
Yeah.
that would have killed everybody in America several times over.
Really?
Oh yeah. It's
Oh man.
it's 25 pounds of fentanyl is very potent if it was distributed out. And keep in mind, fentanyl has been around forever, right? It is being mass produced in China and is being brought over to Mexico and then across the border. And then for our area, it's up and down the I-95 corridor. But, you know, Interstate 95 from New York to Florida, that's sort of how it's making its way back into Myrtle Beach and Conway and the like. But fentanyl itself has been around forever. It's a miracle drug for people that have stage 4 cancer.
Wow.
You give them a fentanyl patch and they feel no pain, even though their body is racked with cancer. But it was never meant to be taken in mass amounts. It was never meant to be taken recreational use. It was for the last leg of life to block pain. And when I tell you that fentanyl is 40 times stronger than heroin, well, that's why they genetically altered it to take care of people in the dying stages of cancer. But again, it was never, and it was, when it's in a patch, it's in a time release capsule put on you by doctors, and that will just floor you itself. But when it's granular and mixed in with everything else, and you don't know what you're getting, it has killed a lot of people in Horry and Georgetown. Fortunately, those deaths have stabilized and plateaued more recently. We're not seeing that spike continue.
Oh, that's great. So some statistics. I don't know what the latest statistics are from what I read, but it says that in 2019, Horry County saw 131 opioid-related overdose deaths. So, in contrast to fentanyl, are we talking about the same thing?
Yeah, well, fentanyl is a very strong opioid, and so is Oxycontin or oxycodone. And most of your listeners, and I've got family members too, so I count myself in this number. But most of those guys, if you've got someone who has a heroin problem or a, God forbid, fentanyl problem, it usually starts not with a needle, but with a toothache or back pain. And opioids, like you get from the doctor, are extremely helpful if you've got acute pain. You've broken your leg. You've got you need of a root canal. Those opioids block that pain, but they're highly addictive. And in the course of about 30 days, you can become addicted to opioids, Oxycontin, oxycodone, those sort of things. That's why Big Pharma had to pay out like $4 billion last year in a class action lawsuit. They were saying that oxycodone Oxycontin was a less addictive brand. It was just as addictive. And people will get hooked on that because like I left my dentist office a few years ago and they gave me a bottle of Oxycontin. Now I was scared to death of it, and they gave me one in the place and I threw the rest of them in the toilet. You shouldn't do that either, but I got rid of them. But I just lived on, Tylenols until the pain went away because I knew that they were extremely addictive. But you can get that first set for about $6 copay. You go to Walgreens or Eckerd's or wherever, and the doctor is giving you that prescription, and you leave after about 30 days and you're now addicted to it. And then to buy that same Oxycontin on the streets, that's expensive. That black market price is about $1 a milligram. In other words, a 90 milligram Oxycontin would cost you about $90. So you can't keep up that sort of drug habit.
No. Yeah.
And you switch to something that's the equivalent, which is black tar heroin. And of course that's an opioid too. It's just the ugly cousin. It's not the pill form that you get from CVS. But it's an opioid nonetheless. And the thing that's really gave us problems is then they started mixing in the fentanyl, which is 40 times stronger, with the heroin mainly. And that's killing people because it's way too powerful.
So what do you think that you're getting adequate funding to address these needs with fentanyl since it's so critical? I mean, almost at a crisis stage, I believe, right?
Yeah. Again, Ed, I don't know. I don't know that the funding, which Big Pharma pumped out $4 billion. I don't know that that's a drop in the bucket. It costs so much more to get someone unaddicted than it does just to keep them from getting addicted to begin with. So I don't know that any amount of money is going to fix that problem. It's like if you poured a little bit of motor oil into a whole big batch of wedding punch. It's better never to have had the motor oil in there, but to have to get it out is extremely tiresome and costly to do.
Right. Yeah.
For what we do, I told you braggartly that, we had graduated about 1,600 people from drug court. But Ed, as well as I do, that is less than a percentage of people that are addicted. So we're doing great things with the cases that come to us, but it takes a long time to get someone off of that in counseling, and we drug test 3 times a week to make sure they're not taking. We have a strict policy where you can't even take other opioids, because an addict is just like an alcoholic, where it might be okay for you and I. Some people can't drink alcohol, and a person that has been addicted to heroin really can't ease off of it with taking Oxycontin again. That's what usually gets them there to begin with. So it is a real rough thing to get somebody off of that. But
well, seemingly so that the challenge is so strong, then there must be some extra concerted effort about trying to address this issue, since the trend seems to be getting worse.
Well, the trend is stabilized.
Okay.
Thank goodness. I think that a big part of that is to be paying more attention to where it's coming in at the borders, and that has really hurt the supply of fentanyl. They're catching a lot more of that than they ever did before, and that's driving up the price. I think that, some of the stuff that we've tried to do is through education, again, to say, please don't ever start this, because it's not a habit that you can keep up with. It rears its head in our drug cases, but it is really well over 75% of all of our thefts are driven by people stealing to get enough money to buy heroin or fentanyl. Yeah,
that's incredible. That's really some startling statistics there.
Yeah, it's and a lot of our violent crime is, that goes down a little bit. It's, but you have the gangs and the gang wars that are over areas for selling drugs. That's the violent crime part. But if you magically did away with heroin and fentanyl today, this would be an easy job to do. I guarantee you 75% of my 10,000 warrants would go away. There's going to be a certain amount of meanness. But before we had this crisis, a bad year in the solicitor's office would be 5,400 warrants. That was a bad year. Now it's 10,000. But a good year, it would be around 4,900 to 5,000 warrants, approximately half of what we have now. And I think that a lot of that deals with heroin and fentanyl, and that crisis that we've kind of hopefully are on the tail end of.
You think is education playing its role?
Yeah, and I think more especially, you can't do as much with the illegal mass-made stuff. They've really done a good job of stopping some of that at the border, but the education part goes to really our doctors that have tried to. There was a time, and I think they're getting a lot better, but there was a time that if you went for a toothache or a backache or a stomach ache, they gave you an opioid. And I think that they are being much stricter now about what they pass out because that's where education pays off. We were able to drastically reduce the amount of people on cigarettes back in the 90s and early 2000s through education. And, lung cancer has gone down because of that, but there's less smokers today. So I think that education plays a vital role in stopping the supply, the user part.
Right.
And what we try to attack from the criminal justice system is the supply line, which is the traffickers and distributors of illegal narcotics, mainly heroin and fentanyl.
Yeah. What caught my eye about wanting to talk about this was when I noticed there was this statistic that dated back to in May when there was this huge drug bust, and somebody said 25 pounds of fentanyl. I mean that was huge. That was Horry County Police, I believe, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Kudos to them. So what kind of trends are we seeing, for example, in Myrtle Beach?
It's still heroin is king. It's stabilized a little bit, but it's still the most widely distributed drug right now. We were seeing a disturbing trend in the last year and a half of methamphetamines, which we never had before. And it's still not anything compared to heroin, but that's sort of taken you're seeing less crack, less cocaine, more methamphetamines, and like I said, the opioids were probably at an all-time high around 2019 to 2022, 2023. That's where all of the deaths were.
Right.
Now that has started to, I think we had about 600 deaths last year, and it was about 600 the year before, which 600 is 600 too many.
Yeah.
And like I said, I've had family members that have passed away with overdose. And any family of any size has seen the same thing. So it's still too much.
Yeah.
But to go from 350 to 375 to 400 to 600, that was, rising, and now it is stabilized. And even to some extent, with our population growing as much as it is, especially around Conway and Myrtle Beach, you would have thought that you would have seen that trend continue, but it is stabilized. And even though we grow at a rate of about 18% per year, we are stabilizing in heroin overdoses and fentanyl overdoses. So that's a good thing. There's some hope that whatever is happening is working.
So why do you think South Carolina has a lot of cases like that, with and a lot of issues dealing with the fentanyl? that was brought in the spotlight here recently.
Yeah, I think that our state has had a good bit of fentanyl deaths. I think Ohio probably outpaced us. I think what you're seeing locally is that we always sort of lose sight of, but we are growing at a very fast rate. I think the last time that we talked, we were number one in the country as far as destination people moving.
That's
to
right.
Horry County, and just had taken over Scottsdale, Arizona. But when you add into it, particularly our area, with 18 to 20 million visitors every year at the Grand Strand, that's a lot of movement.
Yeah.
Now, just like on football Saturdays, Clemson or South Carolina will be the fourth and fifth largest city in the state because of all of the people coming.
Right.
Only 1% of those people are going to get in trouble, but 1% of 80,000 is, I guess, 800. Yeah, and 1% of 800 is only 8.
Right.
So, you know, 1% is 1% is 1%. It's a small in terms of all of the people that are coming, but think about 1% of 18 million. That is, and we, if 1% of those people get in trouble, then that is we're having to bring people back from West Virginia and back from Ohio to prosecute. Whether they'd be victims or, you know, accused of a crime. So that is sort of unique to our area that you wouldn't see in Williamsburg or you wouldn't see in Sumter nearly as much as you would see in Myrtle Beach. They just don't have 18 million people coming in.
Right. Yeah. So let's kind of refocus here. So you didn't say too much about Georgetown or Williamsburg County. How I know that, and you just mentioned that something like that doesn't compare to what people coming in Myrtle Beach. But is there any focus at all on like Georgetown?
Yeah,
and that's part of the 15th Circuit. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Right.
Georgetown is. Williamsburg is grouped with Sumter.
Okay.
So that's a different circuit, but Georgetown has some cases. Of course, it's a port town, but to put it in perspective, we'll have 5 times the amount of felony warrants in Horry County this year than we would have in Georgetown. There's just not as many people coming in, not as much crime that you're having to deal with. At worst, you're going to see about 2,000 felony warrants come out of Georgetown, and there'll be about 10,000 in Horry. And it'll be less than 2,000 in Georgetown. So I think a lot of that is Georgetown has tourists, but the tourists that they have would be up around the Waccamaw Neck area. And that is Pawleys Island, Litchfield Beach, very expensive parts. And some of it's going to be socioeconomical.
Yeah.
People that come in from Ohio or West Virginia aren't going to Pawleys Island for the most part. It's just too expensive. So another thing, Hilton Head doesn't have crime like we have, or they don't have those huge numbers. Charleston may, but they're not going to have 18 million come in Charleston. It's just a little bit different.
Yeah, you would think so, because Charleston is faster growing also. It's really.
It is, but Charleston, like I went to, we had a meeting in Charleston. This board that I'm on called the Prosecution Commission. And several of those hotels downtown, $750 a night. So I stayed in Mount Pleasant. I can't pay out that kind of money, but once you get that expensive, now you're going to have somebody, well, they say that Alec Murdoch spent all of his money on opioids, but I still don't know how he'd spent $5 million, and most multimillionaires, aren't taking that kind of pills. But
no. That's remarkable. It really is.
I think if they dig into that a little bit more, that's a lot of pills. I don't know that he spent all of that in pills.
So there must be a strain, and you may have mentioned this before. There must be a strain on our local resources as a result of basically fentanyl use and addressing fentanyl situations, right? And I think, of course, I did ask you about the budget earlier, but so how do you reconcile the budget, the existing budget, addressing the or recognizing that fentanyl is if not the main issue, one of them.
So for prosecution, Horry has really supported us. Our county council is really, I've never asked them for something that they didn't give us. Now, I don't ask for a lot, but anything I've ever asked them, they would give us. What we found in a study that we did is that Greenville had about 80 prosecutors, and they have about 18,000 warrants, not quite double what we have a year, but they've got almost triple the number of prosecutors. Charleston's got 60 prosecutors. We got 35. Same thing in Columbia. They got 60. We got 35. And our numbers are basically the same as far as felony warrants from Horry as Richland County or Charleston County. Now, Ed, you and I have known each other for years. Part of that is on, I don't want to manage 60 attorneys. I want 35 attorneys working hard. 35 prosecutors working hard. I don't want to be 60. So part of that's on me, but we've upped our drug team that handle just heroin, fentanyl cases by 2. And that was 2 people that was given to us by the state. The state saw that we were a lot smaller of an office than other circuits that had comparable numbers. So they gave us 2, and we put them on drugs to prosecute drugs. So last year we probably tried half of our cases were murders, but about half of them were drug trafficking cases that actually went to trial. So that crowd is doing a really good job. They have reduced their workload from over 700 warrants a prosecutor to around 520 at last count, maybe 525, somewhere right in there. So they've reduced that caseload. The 2 new prosecutors have done an outstanding job lifting some of that burden. But the real place that you may see in need of a budget increase would be the police. they are the first responders. The police and fire are all equipped with medicine that reverses the effects of heroin and fentanyl, and that too has played a part in so many people not losing their lives. That the first responders are getting there sometimes even before EMT gets there, and are able to use the reversal drug, and that's saving a lot of lives.
So what kind of time frame is that's crucial before the EMT gets there? What's the window?
Yeah, you're going to want a response time just under 10 minutes, because anything larger than that, there's going to probably be significant damage. But if you can get the response time under 10 minutes, most people can be saved at that point. It is, it's called Naboxone, and it reverses it almost immediately. So every officer has that on their person, and as long as they can get there in under 10 minutes from the call, we got to have somebody making the call to let them know somebody's in danger. But as long as they've been saving a lot of lives, and all of the fire departments have them on every fire truck. So that's part of the reason too that people aren't dying at a higher rate.
All right, that's good use of resources there. I can really tell you. Now, do you? I guess it wouldn't matter when you start dealing with numbers, but is there any important or any there reason to record the gender or the age group? And so, my point is, or my question will be, which one is more prevalent in terms of gender, or the male or the females, and in terms of in what age group is the most prevalent in dealing with the issue of fentanyl? Just curiosity. No, it wouldn't matter if somebody's dying. I mean,
No, I totally get it, Ed. I would say that it is very important to keep up with those facts and figures and areas that people are overdosing in, so that they can lessen response times. Sort of what I'm seeing is people in their upper 20s, say 28 to lower 30s, are the ones that are that I usually see as far as overdoses.
right.
And generally, I would say there's more males than females ODing, and on overdose deaths, I would say most prevalent would be white males in their mid to late 20s. White males, mid to late 20s.
So we're not talking about the elderly doesn't even come into place there, then, right?
Not for the most part, no. And I don't think that if it could happen, but for the most part, if the elderly person is somehow avoided an addiction up into their 60s, they're probably not going to start. They're very cautious. Just like, I had the opportunity with a whole vial of Oxycontins, but there's no way I would have taken them. I mean, I don't want to start something that I can't keep up. So, and I think there's a critical age that and honestly, Ed, I don't see a lot of teenagers overdosing.
Well, that's good. That's good news.
Yeah, I think it's late 20s and up, and I don't know the reason for that, but that seems to be sort of the demographic.
So unemployment doesn't come into play at any point, or stress.
Oh, I think unemployment certainly comes into. I think, but it's the chicken and the egg thing. I think that a lot of these people would have been employed, but for the addiction that keeps them from being good workers.
Oh, okay.
And they've lost their job, they've lost their health care, and they can't afford the legal Oxycontin, and so they've turned to the illegal cousin, which is heroin. A scary thing that we haven't mentioned, and we found locally several times, is peel press machines. And some of these people that are selling drugs, fentanyl, if they put them in a peel press, the person taking the drug may think I'm taking a Valium, or may think I'm taking opioid, but it's been pressed in somebody's home as opposed to in a pharmacy.
Right.
And that's really, really unfortunate. A lot of the cases that hit the news or create a big stir, if you ever see a teenager die from an overdose, generally that hits the news a lot more, but it hits the news because it's a lot more shocking for a college age student to die of overdose.
Solicitor Richardson, we got. I just want to share with you some comments that you can see on the side of your screen there. I don't know, but I'll have April to put them up. She did. Said this is from Miss Priscilla Fuller.
I can't read it, Ed. So tell
me. Okay, I'm going to read it out to you. It says, "Mr. Richardson, thank you for sharing this information. Has anything changed as it relates to treatment and education regarding the drug and the treatment aspect? Have we opened additional facilities in Horry County for treatment?"
Yeah, great question, and it's one that I deal with daily. So there are more places that are open. Unfortunately, it's like I started out telling what we started off talking about. We are much better off if I can get a loved one in drug court, because I've got a heavy bat to keep them on the straight and narrow, and a constant hand, and testing them 3 times a day, and it needs to be for a year and a half, this reversal. But as a family member, and I've had aunts and uncles send cousins to great programs like Hebron, good Christian-based programs. The problem with those is the addict can check themselves out at any time. And if Miss Priscilla spends $12,000 to put them in that program, and it's an addict, and they can check themselves out at any time, the chances of you losing your $12,000 is high, because an addict wants the drugs. Now, where we've got a huge advantage is, and I tell them, you can check yourself out at any time. It's no problem to me. But that door that you walk through, the other end of it's 12 years in prison. So you're going to stay with me and beat this drug addiction, or you're going to go sit it out in prison. And Owl's Nest can't do that, or Hebron can't do that.
Yeah.
But I've sent or had cousins to go. They are great places. Sometimes they get through it and break an addiction. The problem is they're 6 weeks to 6 months, and you really need probably a year and a half to totally beat this addiction.
Wow.
Part of the thing that makes us successful, it's not that our counselors are better. It's the stick. It's saying, if you leave, you're going to prison. So suck it up, Buttercup. You're either going to get clean or you're going to prison. But there ain't no middle ground. And that's for about 40% of our people. I told you about 60% pass. 40% fail.
Right. Yeah.
There are a lot of good programs. Just that's the caveat, is be careful, because you can lose a lot of money and there's nothing they can do to make them stay in the program.
Right. I know that the medical part is probably a little bit bending out of your field, but is there any connection or are there any statistics addressing, maybe, or for lack of a better word, any statistics showing the relationship between a mother with a fentanyl born child, for example, that's addicted to fentanyl?
So yes, I don't know the statistics, but anything that goes into mother's body is going to go into baby's body. And where the mother may be 140 pounds or 180 pounds, the baby is measured in terms of 4, 5, 6 pounds. So it's going to have a much greater effect on the child than it would the mom. Generally speaking, they have a rough time at first, but there's nothing to say that that addiction will be a lifetime addiction if it doesn't do neurological damage.
But you don't have many cases like that, do you?
We have a lot of children that are born. Yeah, we do. We have a lot of mothers that are taking illegal drugs during their 9 months of pregnancy.
Then that puts a strain on medical resources, when in some cases there's no insurance involved, and so who gets, how is this taken care
of? The child is basically rehabbed at birth, and again, if there's no neurological damage, there's nothing to say that the child is going to carry on that addiction later. But if you have neurological damage, or basically that strong drug has shocked the system and messed stuff up developmentally, then everybody is going to pay for that. As the child grows into a teenager and further on. But a lot of children are addicted to opioids and clear that addiction. If it's not bad enough to do any in vitro damage, the child can function normally. But they will have to be rehabbed upon birth.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, look, our time is upon us, and I think this is worth all the education in the world for getting to know something about fentanyl. A few items I wasn't aware of. I tell you that I was not. And you certainly propagated it well. And we have a few comments we had on the side of people asking those questions, but I just want to thank you for being willing to join us today, especially a few days from your favorite holiday, one of your favorite holidays.
Yeah.
And so that means that you're on your job. You're serving the people well.
Ed, would you post on your website or up here my email address? If anybody's got any questions, I'll try to get them the answers. I know this is going to probably generate some discussion, but give out my email address there, and I'll get answers for you for anybody that's got any.
Yeah, as I recall, you're at Horry County SC.org.
Yes, sir. Rich J, RICHJ, at Horry County Horry County SC.gov.
Okay.
They switched up that org stuff a few years ago, but Rich J at Horry County SC.gov.
Is that it at the bottom there you're seeing on your screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And Ed, any of you listeners got any questions or advice for some places if they've got a loved one, I'll certainly get them to the right place. William Hauser at the city of Myrtle Beach. One of the best things they ever did as far as spending money is William Hauser, who is Billy Hauser's son. He is a wealth of knowledge there at the city.
Okay.
And he, if you've got insurance, he can get you into a place. If you don't have insurance, he can get you into a place. He's got all kinds, and a heart for it. Wonderful young man. But he's at the city of Myrtle Beach, and he'll help too.
How do you spell that name again? Just Billy Hauser?
William Hauser, Howser.
Okay.
And I don't have his information, but I know he's at the city of Myrtle Beach, and he's kind of a one-man. Well, he's got two other employees now.
City of Myrtle Beach.
Yeah, and he does a great job. And if anybody emails me, of course, our drug court, we work with and through. We couldn't do it without the help of the community. Like a Father's Place, Owl's Nest, all of those places, we work with them too. So if anybody emails me, I can get you to the right place if you got a family member with a drug addiction.
Fantastic. That's good to know. Very good to know.
Man.
We appreciate that. Jim, before we leave, over the past few days, I just want to send out our condolences to our Honorable Sheriff Thompson, the passing of his wife. Didn't get the opportunity to attend the homegoing services, but we want to send out a rash of condolences to him and his family, the remaining family.
Well, I know there's a lot of believers here, so listening. So be in prayer for them. They were married for over 56 years, I believe. So it's going to be a change. But I say this: Miss Cherry had cancer, and she is in a much better place. Just be in prayer for those that remain here, because it's going to be a different Christmas for them.
Yeah, absolutely. But we just wish them all the best in many years to come for Sheriff Thompson and the remaining family. So
thank you, brother, and thank y'all for having me. And April, I know you in the background, but thank you for hooking all of this stuff up.
Yeah,
one of the most technical people in the world.
Tell you, but you do well. You do good. Okay, so we got it's kind of we're so glad that you were able to come on this evening, and looking forward to getting some more information, because this is going to be an ongoing issue, I'm sure. Okay, so
I tell you this all the time, but if anybody ever backs out, I'm always available. So just let me know. I've been on your show before, but love to do it again.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Fantastic. Okay. Thank you so much, and Godspeed.
God bless everybody. Merry Christmas.
Happy holidays to everyone.
Thank you for watching the World Community Magazine's Hour of Power Live on Facebook.